Welcome to TED.
Thank you very much. The first TED has been great.
Have you met anyone interesting?
Well, the nice thing about TED is everybody's interesting. I was very glad to see Goldie Hawn because I had an apology to make to her. I'd had dinner with her about 2 years ago, and she had this big wedding ring, and I put it on my finger, and I couldn't get it off. And I went home to my wife that night, and she wanted to know why I had another woman's massive big wedding ring on my finger. And anyway, the next morning we had to go along to the jeweler and get it cut off. So, apologies to Goldie.
That's pretty good. So we're going to put up some slides with some of your companies here. You've started one or two in your time. So Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Records. I guess it all started with a magazine called Student, and then yes, all these other ones as well. I mean, how do you do this?
I read all these sort of TED instructions. You must not talk about your own business and this. And now you asked me, so I suppose you're not going to be able to kick me off the stage since you asked the question. So,
it depends what the answer is. But
no, I mean, I think I learned early on that if you can run one company, you can really run any companies. I mean, companies all about finding the right people and inspiring those people, drawing out the best in people. And I just love learning, and I'm incredibly inquisitive, and I love taking on the status quo and trying to turn it upside down. So I've seen life as one long learning process, and if I see. If I fly on somebody else's airline and find the experience is not a pleasant one, which it wasn't 21 years ago, then I'll think, well, maybe I can create the kind of airline that I'd like to fly on, and so got one sort of second-hand 747 from Boeing and gave it a go.
Well, that was a bizarre thing because you made this move that a lot of people advised you was crazy, and in fact. In a way, it almost took down your empire at one point. I had a conversation with one of the investment bankers who at the time when you basically sold your Virgin Records and invested heavily in Virgin Atlantic, and his view was that you were trading the world's 4th biggest record company for the 25th biggest airline, and that you were out of your mind. Why did you do that?
Well, I think that there's a very thin dividing line between success and failure, and I think if you start a business without financial backing, you're likely to go the wrong side of that dividing line. We were being attacked by British Airways. They were trying to put our airline out of business, and they launched what's become known as the Dirty Tricks campaign. And I realized that the whole empire was likely to come crashing down unless I chipped in a chip, and in order to protect the jobs of the people who work for the airline and protect the jobs of the people who work for the record company, I had to sell the family jewelry to protect the airline. And
post Napster, you're looking like a bit of a genius actually for that as well.
Yeah, as it turns out, it proved to be the right move, but it was sad at the time, but we moved on.
Now, I mean, you use the Virgin brand a lot, and it seems like you're getting synergy from one thing to the other. What does the brand stand for in your head?
Well, I mean, I like to think it stands for quality. That if somebody comes across a Virgin company, that
not quality, Richard. Come on now. Everyone says quality.
But I was going to move on. It's I mean, we have a lot of fun, and I think the people who work for it enjoy it. We as I say, we go in and shake up other industries, and I think we do it differently, and I think that industries are not quite the same as a result of Virgin.
I mean, there are a few launches you've done where the brand maybe hasn't worked quite as well. I mean, Virgin Brides. What happened there?
We couldn't find any customers.
I was actually also curious why. I mean, I think you missed an opportunity with your condoms launch. You called it Mates. I mean, Couldn't you have used the Virgin brand for that as well? Virgin no longer, or
well,
something?
Again, we may have had problems finding customers. I mean, often when you launch a company and you get customer complaints, you can deal with them. But about 3 months after launching the condom company, I had a letter of complaint, and I sat down and wrote a long letter back to this lady apologizing profusely, but obviously there wasn't a lot I could do about it. And then 6 months later, or 9 months after the problem had taken, I got this delightful letter with a picture of the baby asking if I'd be godfather, which I became. So all worked out well.
Really?
Again. Yes.
You should have brought a picture. That's wonderful. So just help us with some of the numbers. I mean, what are the numbers on this? I mean, how big is the group overall? What's total revenue?
It's about $25 billion now in total.
And how many employees?
About 55,000.
So you've been photographed in various ways at various times, and never worrying about putting your dignity on the line or anything like that. What was that? Was that real?
Yeah, it was launching a megastore in Los Angeles, I think. No, I mean, I think...
Is that your hair?
No.
What was that one?
Dropping in for tea.
Okay. Running in.
That was quite fun. That was a wonderful car boat launch.
Oh, that car that there was a Tedster invented that, I think. Could you still pause on that one, actually, for a minute?
It's a tough job, isn't it?
I mean, it is a tough job. You know, when I first came to America, I used to try this with employees as well, and they have these different rules over here. It's very strange.
Have the lawyers say you mustn't do things like that. But
I mean, speaking of which, tell us about
Pammy. We launched. Mistakenly thought we could take on Coca-Cola, and we launched a cola bottle called the Pammy, and it was shaped a bit like Pamela Anderson. But the trouble is, it kept on tipping over. But
designed by Philippe Starck, perhaps?
Of course.
So we'll just run a couple more pictures here. Virgin Bride, very nice. Okay, so stop there. This was, you had some award, I think.
That was, 25 years earlier, we'd launched the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, and I'd certainly never expected that 25 years later that she would actually knight us, but somehow she must have had a forgetful memory, I think. But
well, God saved her, and you got your just reward, and that's. I mean, do you like to be called Sir Richard, or how?
Nobody's ever called me Sir Richard. Occasionally in America, I hear people saying Sir Richard and think there's some Shakespearean play taking place, but nowhere else anyway.
Okay. So I mean, can you use your knighthood for anything, or is it's just?
No, I suppose if you're having problems getting a booking at a restaurant or something, it might be worth using it.
No, it's not Richard Branson; it's Sir Richard Branson.
I'll get the secretary to use it.
Okay, so let's look at the space thing. I think we've got a video that shows what you're up to, and Virgin Galactic you're calling it, yes? So that's the Burt Rutan designed spaceship.
Yeah, it'll be ready in 12 months, and then do 12 months extensive testing, and then 24 months from now, people will be able to take a ride into space.
Now, this interior is Philippe Starck designed.
Philippe has done quite a bit of it, the logos, and he's building the space station in New Mexico, and basically he's just taken an eye, and the space station will be one giant eye. So when you're in space, you ought to be able to see this massive eye looking up at you, and when you land, you'll be able to go back into this giant eye. But he's an absolute genius when it comes to design.
But you didn't have him design the engine.
Philippe is quite erratic, so I think he wouldn't be the best person to design the engine. No.
He gave a wonderful talk here.
Yeah, no,
2 days ago. Well, some people found it wonderful. Some people found it completely bizarre. But I personally found it wonderful.
He's a wonderful enthusiast, which is why I love him. But
so, you've always had this exploration bug in you. Have you ever regretted that?
Many times. I mean, I think with the sort of ballooning and boating expeditions we've done in the past, I got pulled out of the sea, I think 6 times by helicopters. So, and each time I didn't expect to come home to tell the tale. So, so in those moments, you certainly wonder what you're doing up there. Or
what was the closest you got to? I mean, when did you think this is it? I might be on my way out.
Well, I think the balloon adventures were each one was each one actually. I think we came close, and I mean, first of all, nobody had actually crossed the Atlantic in a hot air balloon before, so we had to build a hot air balloon that was capable of flying in the jet stream, and we weren't quite sure, when a balloon actually got into the jet stream, whether it would actually survive the 200, 220 miles an hour winds that you can find up there. And so just the initial lift off from Sugarloaf to cross the Atlantic, as we were pushing into the jet stream, this enormous balloon, the top of the balloon ended up going at a couple of 100 miles an hour. The capsule that we were in at the bottom was going at maybe 2 miles an hour, and it just took off, and it was like holding on to 1,000 horses, and we were just crossing every finger, praying that the balloon would hold together, which fortunately it did. But the ends of all those balloon trips were, something seemed to go wrong every time. And on that particular occasion, the more experienced balloonist who was with me jumped and left me holding on for dear life. But did
he tell you to jump, or he just said, "I'm out of here"?
No, he told me to jump, but once his weight had gone, the balloon shot up to 12,000 feet, and I put on.
And you inspired an Ian McEwan novel, I think.
Wow. And I put on oxygen masks and stood on top of the balloon with my parachute, looking at the swirling clouds below, trying to pluck up my courage to jump into the North Sea, which. And it was a very, very, very lonely few moments. But anyway, we managed to survive.
Did you jump, or did it came down in the end?
Well, I knew I had about half an hour's fuel left, and I also knew that the chances were that if I jumped, I would only have a couple of minutes of life left. So I climbed back into the capsule and just desperately tried to make sure that I was making the right decision, and wrote some notes to my family, and then. Climbed back up again, looked down at those clouds again, climbed back into the capsule again, and then finally just thought, there's a better way. I've got this enormous balloon above me is the biggest parachute ever. Why not use it? And so I managed to fly the balloon down through the clouds, and about 50 feet before I hit the sea, threw myself over. And the balloon hit the sea and went shooting back up to 10,000 feet without me. But it was a wonderful feeling, being in that water. And
what did you write to your family?
Just what you would do in a situation like that. Just and I love you very much, and I'd already written them a letter before going on this trip, which just in case anything had happened. But fortunately they never had to use it.
Your companies have had incredible, PR value out of these heroics for years, and until I stopped looking at the polls, you were sort of regarded as this great, hero in the UK and elsewhere. And I mean, cynics might say, this is just a smart business guy doing what it takes to, execute his particular style of marketing. How much was the sort of the PR value part of this?
Well, of course, the PR experts said that as an airline owner, the last thing you should be doing is heading off in balloons and boats and crashing into the seas. And in fact,
they had a point, Richard.
In fact, I think our airline took a full-page ad at the Times saying, come on, Richard, there are better ways of crossing the Atlantic.
So I mean, to do all this, you must have been a genius from the get-go, right? I mean,
I won't contradict that, but
okay, this isn't exactly hardball. Okay.
They
weren't you just terrible at school?
I was dyslexic. I had no understanding of schoolwork whatsoever, and I certainly would have failed IQ tests. And it's one of the reasons I left school when I was 15 years old. And if I'm not interested in something, I don't grasp it. As somebody who's dyslexic, you also have some quite bizarre situations. I mean, for instance, I've had to, I've been running the largest group of private companies in Europe, but haven't been able to know the difference between net and gross. And so the board meetings have been fascinating. And so, is that good news or bad news? And generally people would say, oh, well, that's bad news. but
just to clarify, the $25 billion is gross, right? That's gross. Right.
Well, I hope it's net, actually, having done it. I've got it right.
No, trust me, it's gross.
No, so when I turned 50, somebody took me outside the boardroom and said, "Look, Richard, let me draw on a diagram. Here's a net in the sea, and the fish have been pulled from the sea into this net, and that's the profits you've got left over in this little net, and everything else is I finally worked it all out." So.
But I mean, at school, so as well as being, doing pretty miserably academically, but you were also like the captain of the cricket and football team. So you were kind of you're a natural leader, but just a bit of were you a rebel then, or how would you?
Yeah, I think I was a bit of a maverick, but I was fortunately good at sport, and so that at least I had something to excel at school.
And some bizarre things happened just earlier in your life. I mean, there's the story about your mother allegedly dumping you in a field aged 4 and saying, "Okay, walk home." And did this really happen?
I mean, she was, she felt that we needed to stand on our own 2 feet from an early age. So she did things to us which now she'd be arrested for. Such as pushing us out of the car and telling us to find our own way to Granny's about 5 miles before we actually got there, and making us go on wonderful long bike rides, and we're never allowed to watch television.
But is there a risk here? I mean, there's a lot of people in the room who are wealthy, and they've got kids, and we've got this dilemma about how you bring them up. I mean, do you look at the current generation of kids coming up and thinking they're too coddled, they don't know what they've got, we're going to raise a generation of privileged?
No, I think if you're bringing up kids, you just want to smother them with love and praise and enthusiasm and. So I don't think you can mollycoddle your kids too much, really.
You didn't turn out too bad, I have to say. Your headmaster said to you, I mean, he found you kind of an enigma at your school. He said, "You're either going to be a millionaire or go to prison, and I'm not sure which." Which of those happened first?
Well, I've done both. I think I went to prison first. I was actually prosecuted under 2 quite ancient acts in the UK. I was prosecuted under the 1889 Venereal Diseases Act and the 1916 Indecent Advertisement Act. On the first occasion for mentioning the word venereal disease in public, which we had a centre where we would help young people who had problems, and one of the problems young people have is venereal disease. And there's an ancient law that says you can't actually mention the word venereal disease or print it in public. So the police knocked on the door and told us they were going to arrest us if we carried on mentioning the word venereal disease. We changed it to social diseases, and people came along with acne and spots, but nobody came with VD anymore. So we put it back to VD and promptly got arrested. And then subsequently, never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols, the word bollocks. The police decided was a rude word, and so we were arrested for using the word bollocks on the Sex Pistols album. And John Mortimer, the playwright, defended us, and he asked if I could find a linguistics expert to come up with a different definition of the word bollocks. And so I rang up Nottingham University, asked to talk to the professor of linguistics, and he said that bollocks is not is nothing to do with balls whatsoever. It's actually a nickname given to priests in the 18th century. And he went, furthermore, I'm a priest myself, and so I said, well, would you mind coming to the court? And he said he'd be delighted. And I said, he said, would you like me to wear my dog collar? And I said, yes, definitely, please. That's great. So our key witness was argued that it was actually, never mind the priest, he has the Sex Pistols, and the judge reluctantly found us not guilty. So
that is outrageous. So here, seriously, is there a dark side? I mean, a lot of people would say there's no way that someone could put together this incredible collection of businesses without knifing a few people in the back, doing some ugly things. You've been accused of being ruthless. There was a nasty biography written about you by someone. Is any of it true? Is there an element of truth in it?
I don't actually think that the stereotype of a business person treading all over people to get to the top, generally speaking, works. I think if you treat people well, people will come back and come back for more. And I think all you have in life is your reputation, and it's a very small world. And I actually think that the best way of becoming a successful business leader is dealing with people fairly and well, and like to think that's how we run Virgin.
And what about the people who love you and who see you keep getting caught up in these new projects? I mean, it almost feels like you're addicted to launching new stuff. You get excited by an idea and kapow. I mean, do you think about life balance? How do your family feel about each time you step into something big and new?
I also believe that being a father is incredibly important. So, from the time the kids were very young, when they go on holiday, I go on holiday with them, and so we spend a very good sort of 3 months away together. Yes, I'll be in touch. We're very lucky. We have this tiny little island in the Caribbean, and so I can take them there, and we can bring friends, and we can play together. But I can also keep in touch with what's going on.
You started talking in recent years about this term capitalist philanthropy. What is that?
Capitalism has been proven to be a system that works. The alternative, communism, has not worked. But the problem with capitalism is extreme wealth ends up in the hands of a few people, and therefore extreme responsibility, I think, goes with that wealth. And I think it's important that the individuals who are in that fortunate position do not end up competing for bigger and bigger boats and bigger cars, but you use that money to either create new jobs or to tackle issues around the world.
And what are the issues that you worry about most, care most about, want to turn your resources toward?
Well, there's a lot of issues. Global warming certainly is a massive threat to mankind, and we are putting a lot of time and energy into trying to come up with alternative fuels, and B, we just launched this prize, which is which is really a prize in case we don't get an answer in alternative fuels, in case we don't actually manage to get the carbon emissions cut down quickly, and in case we go through the tipping point. We need to try to encourage people to come up with a way of extracting carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere, and we just there weren't really people working on that before, so we wanted people to try to all the best brains in the world to start thinking about that, and also to try to extract the methane out of the Earth's atmosphere as well. And actually, we've had about 15,000 people fill in the forms saying they want to give it a go, and so we only need one, so we're hopeful.
And you're also working in Africa on a couple of projects?
Yes, I mean we're setting up something called the War Room, which is maybe the wrong word. We're trying to, maybe it would change it, but anyway, it's a war room to try to coordinate all the attack that's going on in Africa, all the different social problems in Africa, and try to look at best practices. So. For instance, there's a doctor in Africa that's found that if you give a mother antiretroviral drugs at 24 weeks when she's pregnant, that the baby will not have HIV when it's born, and so disseminating that information to around the rest of Africa is important. And
the War Room sounds powerful and dramatic. And is there a risk that the business heroes of the West get so excited about? I mean, they're used to having an idea, getting stuff done, and they believe profoundly in their ability to make a difference in the world. Is there a risk that we go to places like Africa and say, we've got to fix this problem, we can do it, I've got all these billions of dollars, here's the big idea, and kind of take a much more complex situation and actually end up making a mess of it? Do you worry about that?
Well, first of all, I mean, on this particular situation, we're actually, we're working with the government on it. I mean, Thabo Mbeki's had his problems with accepting HIV and AIDS are related, but this is a way, I think, of him tackling this problem. And instead of the world criticizing him, it's a way of working with him, with his government. It's important that if people do go to Africa and do try to help, they don't just go in there and then leave after a few years. It's got to be consistent. But I think business leaders can bring their entrepreneurial know-how and help governments approach things slightly differently. I mean, for instance, we're setting up clinics in Africa. Where we're going to be giving free antiretroviral drugs, free TB treatment, and free malaria treatment. But we're also trying to make them self-sustaining clinics so that people pay for some other aspects.
I mean, a lot of cynics say about someone like yourself or Bill Gates or whatever that this is really it's almost driven by some sort of desire, again, for the right image, for guilt avoidance, and not like a real philanthropic instinct. I mean, what would you say to them?
Well, I think that people do things for a whole variety of different reasons, and I think that when I'm on my deathbed, I will want to feel that I've made a difference to other people's lives, and that may be a selfish thing to think, but it's the way I've been brought up. I think if I'm in a position to radically change other people's lives for the better, I should do so.
How old are you?
I'm 56.
I mean, the psychologist Erik Erikson says that, as I understand it, I'm a total amateur, but that during 30s, 40s, people are driven by this desire to grow, and that's where they get their fulfillment. 50s, 60s, that the mode of operation shifts more to the quest for wisdom and the search for legacy. I mean, it seems like you're still a little bit in the growth phase. You're still doing these incredible new plans. How much do you think about legacy, and what would you like your legacy to be?
I don't think I think too much about legacy. I mean, I'd like to, my grandmother lived to 101, so hopefully I've got another 30 or 40 years to go. No, I just want to, live life to its full. If I can make a difference, I hope to be able to make a difference. And I think one of the positive things at the moment is, you've got Sergey and Larry from Google, for instance, who are good friends, and thank God you've got two people who genuinely care about the world, and with that kind of wealth. If they had that kind of wealth and they didn't care about the world, it'd be very worrying, and they're going to make a hell of a difference to the world. And I think it's important that people in that kind of position do make a difference.
Well, Richard, when I was starting up in business, I knew nothing about it, and I also was I thought that business people were supposed to just be ruthless, and that was the only way you could have a chance of succeeding. And you actually did inspire me. I looked at you, I thought, well, he's made it, maybe there is a different way. So I'd like to thank you for that inspiration and for coming to TED today. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Look at that.
Thank you.